What's up everybody, my name is Tyler Gesselman and welcome to The Little Things. So I've been playing a bit of Horizon Zero Dawn lately, and can I just say that I absolutely adore it? Specifically, I love the encounter design. The way the momentum swings back and forth like a pendulum always creates an exciting encounter. Aloy has a massive advantage until she doesn't. Then you're worthless until you can find your area of strength again. I think this encounter design finds an amazing balance between accessibility and punishment, which we'll talk more about later, but what I really can't stand is the exposition.
Tracks. Let's see where. Looks like Sona and her braves headed for that ridge.
So for those of you guys that don't know, The Little Things is a series where I find a game that does one thing right and explain how and why it nails it. Then I move on and talk about how nailing this one thing makes the rest of the game better. Today, I want to flip the script a little bit and talk about an otherwise great game that is majorly hindered by one minor flaw. Horizon Zero Dawn has a problem with exposition. I guess problem might not be the best word to use because it still gets the job done, but it can always be done better. To help illustrate my point, I'm going to write this script with the most bare bones and obvious outline ever. You know, the bare minimum. So without any further ado, let's get this party started. First, what is exposition? Yes, I know I used 3 transitions there, and I don't care. Typically, exposition is when it feels like a character is speaking directly to the audience. Usually it's about the rules of the world, more information about the characters or the setting, but what we really hate is when the characters repeat information that we already know.
An entire lodge wrecked by sawtooths? How many were there?
Like I said, it gets the job done, right? It helps solidify the state of the situation, it makes goals clearly apparent to the player, and overall it kind of just helps with the pacing of the experience in general by reminding them what's going on. So what's an example of good exposition? I'm glad you asked. There isn't really a one-size-fits-all answer, but there are a few examples that we can pull from. We can present the information in a way that's visually interesting instead of just a couple of characters talking, or we can add a little bit of flair of character into the explanations.
1 minute into the future to be exact, and precisely 1:21 a.m. in 0 seconds we shall catch up with him at the time machine.
Now that I think we've sufficiently covered the definition, let's go ahead and apply that to gaming. Even in movies, a lot of writers struggle to write interesting dialogue that tells the rules of the world that their characters live in. Games have those rules too, but they also need to find a way to make sure that the player understands what they need to do and how to do it. Many games just ignore it entirely, having text pop up on the screen that acts as tooltips. Others really go the extra mile by having the characters just outright say it. Horizon Zero Dawn can't decide which one it wants to be.
Out of ammo. I should switch weapons.
Tyler, don't you think you're nitpicking? Yes, as a matter of fact, I do, but I'm gonna keep on going. Here are my top 3 ways Horizon Zero Dawn suffers from lazy writing. The first and probably the biggest thing is that this writing assumes that the player is an idiot, which probably isn't a bad idea. I'm Bronze 2 in League of Legends, so I know a lot about idiots. But I promise I'm not an idiot, I'm smart. So I don't need Aloy reminding me 3 times every second what I need to do.
Faster! Stop dragging!
Especially when there's like 15 way markers on the screen that are telling me the important objectives. Now, I don't have to think anymore. All of these pretty pictures on the screens are doing it for me. Number 2, strange difficulty spikes. Since I've been spending so much time not thinking, I'll run into trouble accomplishing any task that requires me to think, which is a shame again because of how awesome and punishing the combat system is. I guess the trick to overcoming this challenge is by putting yourself in a place where the game doesn't think for you, but the tutorial holds your hand through the entire thing. Rost establishes bad habits from the get-go by coaching you all, and even afterwards when Rost isn't there, you have way markers and tooltips that will get you to safety.
I should stay out of sight. I can use the tall grass to approach.
The game doesn't really let you make a mistake.
Why do we force? So that we can learn. ourselves up.
Number 3. Flat characters. They're either smug douchebags or loyal soldiers. Aloy, on the other hand, is hilarious because she's super sarcastic and it almost feels like she's making fun of these side characters.
Oh, are you gonna shut your mouth? Because that would be a surprise.
They literally just feel like they're there just to hand out quests and rewards. Why am I storming this base? Does anybody here actually care about this world? Or do we all just want to find an excuse to help Aloy on her mission? I'll admit that the regular characters that start to show up a little bit later in the game are pretty cool though. I wanted to find a way to get this topic to flow naturally into the topic of gaming literacy, but I couldn't. That's why I came up with this brilliantly terrible idea of formatting the script this way. Are you guys hating it as much as I hate writing it? Okay, cool, then let's go ahead and stop. I think all of this handholdiness from Horizon Zero Dawn is a symptom of a larger problem that we have in the gaming industry. We don't have a universal gaming language. Here's a cutscene. If I press start, will it pause the game or will it skip the scene entirely? That's just the tiniest example ever, but it's that uncertainty that's holding back a lot of new players into entering this medium. Guerrilla knows that there are going to be a lot of people that jump into this game with zero gaming experience, but they still wanted to make a deep RPG with a gripping story. They try to strike that balance by making sure that the player only has to worry about one thing at a time. Okay, here's where you'll learn about the mission. Stop the game and we'll just show only the dialogue. Next, we'll give you some way markers so you don't get lost, so that all you have to do is focus on gathering resources for the next fight. Alright, here's the bad guys. Nobody can see you in this bush right here, so just turn on your x-ray vision and mark all of the bad guys. Now that there aren't any surprises, execute the plan. That final step, the execution, is where I think Guerrilla nailed it. Aloy has so much strength in her element. Take her out of it and she's incredibly weak. You probably still won't die, but you'll be forced to fall back and completely rethink your strategy. Maybe that's punishment enough. About that, every Friday I write a post on Patreon detailing the topic I plan on writing about and give my patrons a place where they can have input into the topics. So Canet brings up a really interesting point about difficulty. They say that you can always make things harder. You can avoid the tall necks and not buy the maps with the collectible markers on them. I think that's a pretty solid compromise. Maybe the developers don't have to be the ones that keep everything difficult. Maybe, at the start of the game, they tell the player that they can get a deeper challenge by avoiding certain gameplay elements. Pokemon's Nuzlocke run is a really popular example of this, and even RuneScape has implemented the various Iron Man challenges into their games. Ultimately, Horizon Zero Dawn suffers from trying to appeal to everybody, but The Little Things is about commending the games that get it right. Without a doubt, Horizon Zero Dawn approaches accessibility in a bold new direction, and I, for one, can't wait to see where they take the future of this beautiful new franchise. The Little Things is powered by you all on Patreon. Every Friday, I post a rundown and ask questions concerning the topic that I have planned for the next video. You'll also get a bonus monthly show and your name will be in the credits of the video. Next week, we'll be diving deeper into the topic of gaming literacy with League of Legends, discussing the strengths and pitfalls of designing a game where you ask the players to know so much. Until next Wednesday, my name is Tyler Gesselman, and as always, it's been a pleasure.